Welcome. I'm Jessica Tejan, and this is the Evolving to Exceptional podcast, where we talk about reaching peak performance in our workplaces, homes, and communities so that we can live our best life possible, an exceptional life. Welcome back to the Evolving to Exceptional podcast. We've had a little bit of a break for a while. I had COVID and then the stomach bug and all the things that everybody's having right now. But we're super excited to be back, and I am really passionate about the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is all around why knowing is not enough, why we actually have to take action. And this really struck me the other day because I was taking this online course for myself for a certification that I'm doing, and they talked about embodying, how we need to embody our learnings. And it took me back to all the managers and leaders, that the hundreds of managers and leaders that I've trained, and how often that they just don't do what they know they should be doing. They know exactly what is needed, and they even know how to do it, but that doesn't mean actually will do it. That, like, just knowing is not enough to actually create the outcomes and results that we want to create, or that we want to experience. And if I'm honest, I mean, I'm probably guilty of that myself too. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that all of us are. And if we look at different areas of our life, we can pick out certain areas where we are performing less than ideal, and where we know that right here is where we want to be, but we're showing up in a different way. And so I kind of see it as like the spinning plates. Have you ever seen one of the guys that like does the spinning plates? Like we
Yes.
have those areas, we have so many areas of our life when we're improving, that to focus on one, start that spinning, and then get the next one going, and then you're going to have to come back to this one too. And that's just part of the process and ongoing process of growth and evolution.
I think there's some implications there, maybe, with what it means for performance and development in companies in particular. Because when it comes to performance and development, there's so much knowledge out there. There's
Mhm.
so many
Mhm.
self-help books and development books and thought leaders who've been researching, writing, and speaking on the topics. Most leaders and managers, now not all, there are those that are new or haven't ever encountered it, but most leaders and managers have probably been exposed to that knowledge, a handful of times, maybe at least once in their career. And that means that they're at least partly aware of what they should be doing. And the reason I know that, despite being aware of what they should be doing, that they aren't doing, besides watching them in my own organizations and the ones
Mhm.
that we work with, is by the results that we're getting, right? So if managers and leaders were really doing what they should be doing with respect to performance, what we know works, then why then do we have workplaces who are continuing to struggle with engagement and performance? Why do we keep having situations where organizations have to downsize? Why are people more stressed, burnt out, unhappy, and struggling with well-being more than ever in many, many years? Why are people perpetually frustrated with their workplaces and managers' inability to do these basic things? They complain about their bad bosses and their toxic workplaces. And so then the question is, why, as managers and leaders, do we not do the things that we know that we should be doing? Why do we not embrace those challenges? And I like your analogy of, like, the many spinning plates, but any thoughts on why that is so challenging? Like, why we can't actually keep those skill sets long term?
Yeah, I think sometimes we don't give it enough time and focus to get it fully going, and just part of our routine, part of what we do, part of who we are. And that takes time to change those processes, to change that and evolve as a person. It takes consistent focus, and I think that sometimes, especially when you're trying new things and you get negative feedback back, because change is hard for everyone, not only in workplaces but in the home. When you start changing rules, kids are like, "No," and they rebel, right? They're like, "This is not how we do things." And so I think that first really big bump is the resistance to change that each of us have, that our cultures, our societies, our homes, our families have. And I think that's the power of a coach, right? Having a coach to help you get through that hurdle and those bumps like that. I think that's probably one of the biggest ones, in the beginning, especially.
So I love like a couple things you talked about there. I think you're right. I think one thing is, yes, certainly when things change and there's resistance, and actually that brings a memory back for me of when I first implemented performance practices with my own employees, with my own teams. The like level of like rejection of like, I don't want to do that. That's more work. Like, why do I, why do we have to write down what our expectations are and like really talk about them?
Yeah.
And so there was this like initial pushback. And so whenever I talk with managers and leaders, I'm always telling them, you're going to have to get over that hurdle. You're going to have to push
Mhm.
long enough
Yeah.
for people to see the benefit
Mhm.
before they start to appreciate that, oh, these are bringing value. Oh, this is like
Right.
worth doing. I should keep doing this. The other thing I think you hit on that was really key was change. And I think when we understand why our bodies don't like to change,
Mhm.
it makes more sense, or at least it has to me. So as I've learned that our neural pathways exist, right? We formed these neural pathways throughout our lives of how we operate and how we do
Mhm.
things, how we respond to different situations, and just how we live and perform our lives. When we train managers, leaders, individuals in how to do that more effectively or in a different way, that's a new neural pathway. And the body likes to conserve energy. That's
Mhm.
its job, is to create pathways that work so that it can use less energy by having like really well-worn pathways. And so it doesn't want to take the less worn path. It doesn't want to go down the road not traveled, right? The brain wants to do what it's always done. That takes less energy. And so the rejection of change, or the resistance to change, is, I think, and this is a new, insight for me. I think that it's not necessarily conscious, that it
Mhm.
is a unconscious physiological response that's
Mhm.
happening, and that's making it difficult to make the long lasting change, to make the shifts that we need to make.
Mhm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's such a great insight, and something I think, just take a moment and just digest that for a minute. That your resistance to change is a biological reaction, a physiological reaction, and being aware of that is so powerful, because when you're aware, then you have opportunity to actually consciously choose instead of default choice.
Well, it makes so much sense too, right? I
Yeah.
really want to work out and be healthier and feel better, right? Like, I really want that.
Yeah.
But my reaction, my response is not to take the action, not to do the thing that I know I wanna do. I know in my head long term there's
Mhm.
benefits, but there's something stopping me that goes
Mhm.
beyond my knowing, right? It goes beyond our
Yes.
our head brain consciousness of what we're doing, and extends into our neurology at a deeper level.
Mhm.
And one of the
Mhm.
things I think about a lot is why that's so problematic for so many training programs out there. And because and it works really well for the people selling companies training programs. And in retrospect, I mean, I bought them. I've been certified in lots of things. I've gone to lots of 2-day trainings, and they're great. They're
Mhm.
really, really, really great. But the problem always is you have 2 days of all this information. Maybe a few exercises or activities in there, but
Mhm.
mostly a lot of information, knowledge, like this,
Mhm.
let me tell you all these cool things, and you walk away feeling like, "Man, that was so good. I'm
Mhm.
so glad I did that. This is gonna change everything." And then a day goes by, 2 days goes by, 5 days goes by. Within a week, we've lost most of it. And we're
Mhm.
lucky if we implement 1, 2, 3 of the things that
Mhm.
we learned, let alone all of it. And so we make these big time and dollar investments in these live training events, and the training events get good reviews. It was a great keynote, it was a great speech, it was a great,
Mhm.
engagement, but it doesn't carry through to long-lasting change, to helping people really do things differently in their lives. And as a result, we're spending, I mean, it's a billion-dollar learning and development industry out there.
Mhm. Yeah.
And is it working? Is it really transformational change,
Mhm.
or is it surface level? And I'm not knocking every single training program that's out there
No.
or their effectiveness or anything like that. But when we don't take our neurobiology into consideration, it, it's a challenge.
Mhm. Mhm. I agree. Great questions to be asking yourself too. Great questions to be considering if you're a coach or you're in the industry or you're teaching other people is what are the results that they're getting and what can you do to help them take more consistent action?
So what are maybe you can help walk through, I'm talking about our physiology and our neurology, like why is it that we don't make those changes? Like what
Mhm.
is it about most training programs where do they stop typically? Cuz they're talking about the right behaviors usually. Like
Yeah.
these are the things that if you
Yeah.
do these things differently, you'll get better results in actions, right? Like we don't like
Right?
our actions, we got to change our behaviors. What are they missing?
Yeah, so this is a topic that I think you and I are both super passionate about, and I absolutely love, and something I learned early on in my career that and you can see this in our daily life. It's actually really common to see where we focus on actions and outcomes alone. And that is the main focus. Let's change these actions and get these outcomes. And what we don't know is it goes deeper than that. It goes much deeper than that. What drives all of our actions? What precedes in any action you have? A thought paired with an emotion. That emotion then triggers your physiology. And going back to what Jessica said, we have those core beliefs, those core ideas that we're functioning and really it programming that we're taking action from that we're not even aware of. We don't even know why we're doing that or why we do what we do fully because we're not self-aware in any given area of our life that we want to change. And so, you see it so commonly in the health world where people will yo-yo, their weight will yo-yo because they're just focusing on getting to the gym, drinking the right water, eating the right foods, and that's it. But then life hits and changes, their ability to do all of those things. Maybe they have added stress, and all of a sudden those new actions become so much harder because they're not wired in, because you have all these core beliefs. We have core root beliefs around all of our actions, all of our ideas, beliefs around our bodies, beliefs around food, beliefs around, and it's so complex to really change behavior when you're not aware, and to really get down to those levels of self-awareness of why you really do what you do. What are the core beliefs, core ideas, and how does your body react in those moments, and then learning to change in that.
I love how you talk about that. I know we have used the analogy of like the iceberg, like the
Mm,
behaviors are what you see on the surface, and we have to get below that surface. So we've got to go to the thoughts that are creating
mhm,
those behavior, right?
mhm,
So underneath the behaviors, we're thinking things that are having us do those behaviors. Then we have to get to the feelings that are creating the thoughts because we're feeling something.
mhm,
We're feeling irritated or frustrated or something in there. And
mhm,
that's what's causing us to think a certain way and behave a certain way. Then if we
mhm,
go a level deeper, we get to our emotions. A lot of people confuse feeling and emotion. Emotion is involuntary. Emotion
mhm,
is something that it happens whether we want it to or not. Our
mhm,
feelings are the result of our emotions. Our feelings are irritation or frustration. Our emotion is anger.
mhm,
And so we have to get below, "I'm frustrated." "Why
mhm.
are you frustrated?
Yeah,
What's going on?" Then you
yeah,
get down to that emotional level, "Well, because 'cause I'm angry." Like,
yeah,
there's an anger there that
yeah,
exists down below that surface. And
yeah.
then it goes even further than that. For a long time, I thought it was just at the emotion, and I feel like learning that there's a physiological component, that there's an embodied component, just
Mhm,
opened my eyes that beyond that emotion is a physiological response. That emotion is being triggered by my body in some way because of
mhm,
some experience, because of some neural pathway that has been built within my body, within my being, within my neurons. And so we really have to get to that level. And I've talked in other episodes about the multiple brains where our neurons live within our body and our heads and our hearts and our guts, but we really have to start to understand that internal intelligence. Where are those neurons? What are each of those areas responsible for? And that's where we have to make change
mhm,
if we want those behaviors to change long term,
mhm,
right? That's
mhm,
where we've got to access our inner wisdom
mhm.
and change at that root physiology rather than just on the surface.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. That root level is so powerful. And the greatest part about this is Jessica and I are all in our own lives doing this. Like we are with you in it. We believe in the integrity of living these things and I've seen it's been so interesting as I've watched this really getting down to the physiology and addressing those intelligences and addressing one of the things that I struggled with in the past is this exact thing. I wanted this thing, but taking action on it was hard. And as I've learned, okay, what part of my body is responsible for action? Oh, my gut. Oh, okay. So I really am having a gut issue here. I'm having an issue that I need to really talk things out to my body, to my emotions, get everything in alignment with what I want to have happen and my ability to change. I actually have been shocked. I've had a couple of moments recently that I'm like, it's happening. Like I'm actually doing it and it feels really good. And that was easy. Like, that little button, that was easy. Like this has been incredible to learn because when you get there, um, we I think we've all experienced that frustration and almost where sometimes you just want to give up because you're like, I cannot figure out how to implement this and do this and make it happen. But really addressing that and taking that time to do that has changed things for me and things are happening faster, things are coming together and I'm able to take action in different ways and I'm growing so much in alignment with what I really want as I do this. So it's part of why I'm so passionate about it is because Jessica and I are doing this and we're sharing our experiences and we're seeing results and we want to share it with everyone and we want to help everyone with it.
I agree with you, and that's been my experience too. And what I think is really powerful is that when you tap into that inner wisdom and you understand what's happening, the the result, whatever action you take, whatever the outcome is, it's unique to you. It's what's
Yeah.
best for you. It's your
Mhm.
situation. It's your circumstance.
Mhm.
And I think, at least for me, and I don't speak for everybody, but at least for me, I read 30 to 50. I think
Mhm.
last year I didn't hit 50. I hit 45 books, but I didn't hit 50 last year. But I read a lot of
Mhm,
personal development and books and research because I
mhm,
want to know what are those practices, and I
mhm,
try so many of them,
mhm,
and I struggle with a lot
mhm,
of them.
mhm,
And I think one of the things I've discovered is that, again, at least for me, what fits for someone else, what has worked really well and may work really well for 5% of the population or even
mhm.
25% of the population, doesn't work really well for 100%.
Right.
And so when I try to implement someone else's habit, someone else's technique, and I don't figure out how it fits for me, where does it fit
Mhm,
within, and how do I integrate it into my wisdom, my knowing,
mhm,
my, neurology of
mhm.
information, then I'm not gonna make the change that I wanna make. Then it's not gonna last, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna, at some point, probably give up without, some significant, some significant support and consistency and reinforcement. And so, that's the other thing I think is we try to do what works for somebody else, and then when we fail, we think there's something wrong with us. But
right.
in actuality, it might be that it's a completely different challenge for you. Your challenge with following through on something might be rooted in something that has nothing to do with the process you're trying to follow or what worked for somebody else. And
Yeah.
so I think that's really powerful. The other thing though is sometimes when we talk about this, it gets kind of in the realm of like deep inner work and
Mhm.
core beliefs and like you start to think like therapy or counseling or
Right.
things like this. And I want to express that like what I've discovered is like yes, those things are good and valuable and worth doing, but, like, you're probably not gonna do that in the workplace, or you probably don't wanna go there necessarily in some
Right.
situations, and some people aren't ready to do that
Yeah,
either,
it's true.
but it can be used in other ways. Like, it can be used in more simple you don't have to deal with the deepest, darkest root belief. In some cases, it may be that your inner wisdom, around maybe taking action on something or following through on something, when you go through a process of paying attention to it, it's actually really simple. It's just something
Mhm.
you weren't conscious or aware of.
Yeah.
And so I'll give an example because this is one I use and I see now why this change worked for me when I did it. So one of the changes I made a number of years ago was around wanting to make more connections with people um and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't developing more relationships. And this is in the workplace, right? So as an executive leader, how do I develop more relationships with employees in the workplace? And so that as new people are coming in, I get to know them and I can connect with them, right? Like truly.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, how am I going to do this? And this is I was a new mom with a I think my son was like 1 at the time and I'm, balancing work and kids and everything. So um I set a what I call a prompt action and then a reward for myself. So the prompt was anytime I say hi or how are you, like those words. So I'm passing somebody in the hall and you make eye contact and you say, hi, how are you? Like the casual thing.
Mhm.
I stop and listen for the answer. So my action was to
Mhm.
stop and listen for the answer. And then was gonna and then I would reward myself, with, that was time well spent, and worth doing. So I implemented this practice, this was years ago, and what I discovered when I did this, like, kind of inner work around it was that it wasn't that I didn't want to do that action, it was that I had a belief that I didn't have enough time to stop,
Mhm.
to do that action and that that wasn't a good use of my time. And
Mm,
when I shifted it, and after I started doing it, I really realized, I mean, I would have people tell me things that were really important and
mhm,
were really valuable and made a big difference in terms of my relationship with them.
mhm,
And so as I did it, then I shifted my belief that I didn't have time for that activity. And
mhm,
that allowed me to continue to this day to try to make that a point and to recognize when I'm glossing over that and I'm not letting people answer, "How are you?" and
mhm,
give the answer. And so I think sometimes it doesn't have to be a big, deep, dark,
mhm.
issue. It can be something that's not that complicated to address, but you gotta go through the effort to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 points that I think are really valuable insights here that you brought up that I wanna bring to light for our listeners. One is small, simple steps, bite-sized steps. Actually, I do believe that's how you create real lasting change. It's the small little shifts that you make over time are the most important. When we make these huge like life, I remember when I got into health, I cleaned out my whole house of every any sort of processed anything, and my kids were like, "What?" And it was such a big change that it actually was really hard to stay. And so it's been the small things over time that have made a big difference for me personally. And I see this with clients too all the time, that when you can make those small, simple steps, like, okay, this is what I want. What can I do to have that? What's one small simple thing I can do to actually take a step in that direction? Then those build over time. Those build into big shifts. And I think that's really important and a great takeaway here. The second thing is the what I call loving curiosity. Always being curious about yourself. Why you do what you do. And what's cool, Jessica, about your story that I really love is when you stepped into doing something different, maybe it was before or after, but the light bulb went off of like, oh, I used to do that old thing because I had this belief that it wasn't worth my time. But actually, I can see now that I value relationships. And so this is a great investment of my time. And we make these stories and meanings of everything in our lives. That's one of the functions of our brain to do, is to make meaning of everything. And so when we get curious, then it really can be as simple as a reframe of, oh yeah, I actually value this, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to see this differently. And then you're in alignment. Then you're doing it, and it
Yeah.
becomes a really powerful, just small and simple. And I think that it was so brilliant to bring that up, because you don't always have to go so deep into the darkest stuff. No, it can be simple and easy, and that's actually what we want for a lot of clients that want that, is take those small simple actions, get lovingly curious about your what you do, and you'll find incredible insight.
Well, and at least for me, I think what's really great is when they're small, you can actually do a lot of them. You don't have to limit it to one. So
Yeah.
like I could do that thing and
Mhm.
do other things,
Yeah.
and with intention,
Yeah.
be more vulnerable with my employees or the other thing objectives I had. So I
Mhm.
didn't have to like limit myself like until I do this well,
Yeah.
I can't develop or focus on something else. You can
Right.
actually do these things and crush your life in different areas. And that's
Mhm.
another benefit of the trainings we have together with them addressing work and home life. It's great when you can pick something that it goes over both, so you're doing it
Mhm.
both in your workplace and you're doing it at home, so you're getting clear on expectations in the workplace and you're doing it at home, and you're figuring out why it's been hard before, why you haven't done it, and how to make that shift so that you do it consistently, and what's necessary to bring that or to do
Mhm.
that. The other thing I reflected on after after having going through this and thinking about this and writing up this article on it was what were the elements that require this transformational growth, because that's really what
Mhm.
happens when we
Mhm.
do this. We're literally transforming our growth, we're
Mhm.
transforming our neurological circuits, and we continue to exist into the future in a different way. So we're
Mhm.
far less likely to revert back because we've now really done the work to implement these new practices. Now, that's not fast. That's not like 6 weeks. That's like a couple
Mhm.
years.
Right.
But when we start doing it in this way, in the way I'm going to describe in a second, that's when after that time, it's now second nature. Now, when I catch myself in a lack of accountability, I immediately go, I'm telling myself a story. And I
Yeah.
immediately go,
Mhm.
I don't want to be the victim of my circumstances. How am I
Mm.
going to pull myself out and move forward? Like how am I going to think about this differently?
Yeah.
And so it becomes that's the pattern, that's the
Mhm.
pathway, that's how we live. And having worked on this for the last 5 years, that positive mindset piece, that's one I've worked on. That one is now just so ingrained. Like
Mhm.
I have a lot of challenges in my life. I've got
Mhm.
3-year-old twins and a 6-year-old boy, and they were constantly sick, and I have autoimmune issues, and I'm constantly sick, and trying to start a business and juggling all the things. And the positive mindset is the only thing that gets me through it, because I
Mhm.
because that's my pathway now. What's the positive in this day? What can I focus on and feel good about? How can I shift my mindset to what's working and keep going even when I've been knocked down? So I came up with 6 things, and I want to get your thoughts on these 6 things, and that these are kind of the secret, although it's not a secret, but this is the things you need in order to really get to transformational change. So of course, I'm not even counting this one. Knowledge is foundational. Okay, I'm not even putting that on the list because of course we need to know what and how to do it, right? Like that's
Mhm. Yeah.
everybody's got that. Then we have to take time for reflection. So we
Mhm.
have to really think about it and understand it. That's probably the hardest step
Mhm.
because we want to move on to the next important, busy,
Mhm.
high achiever thing we need to do rather
Yeah.
than take the time to reflect. But that reflection allows us to take what we've learned and put it into our context, into
Mhm.
our wisdom. And then the second part is to then integrate that
Mhm.
into your insights. What does it mean to you? What are you going to do differently? What do you think is important based on what you've now learned?
Mhm.
And then that leads you to what action are you going to take? So what am I
Mhm.
going to do? Um,
Mhm.
and we've got some techniques for how to define those actions, like I
Mhm.
talked about the par. But then you have to do it consistently. So you
Mhm.
have to be doing that action consistently. And the best way to ensure consistency is to create accountability.
Mhm.
And although I'm a huge proponent of personal accountability and a commitment to taking ownership for what we do, it's really hard to stay in high personal accountability on something that we're just doing for ourselves, on something that someone else isn't following up with us on, or isn't interested in the outcome of.
Mhm.
And so if we can create accountability for ourselves, either getting a coach, a system, or tracking it, something that reinforces that consistency, that really it helps to ensure success. And then the last piece is that coaching and support piece, that in order to really transform, having coaching and support, having regular conversations about it, having regular attention brought to it. How am I
Mhm.
doing at it? Have I made progress on it? And not just one thing, right? All of the things that you're working
Mhm.
on and developing and growing. That is what creates transformational growth. And I love to comment here on the investment in that, because I think sometimes people are like, I don't have the time, money, or energy to put into that.
Mm.
And what I've discovered through getting coaching and my own coaching journey has been, if I were to have done coaching, like the programs that you and I've built, if I were
Yeah.
to have done those myself as a
Mm.
as a new manager, I would have been such an effective manager within 2 years. Like, I would have been on it. The results would have been tremendous. But because I didn't have that, because I didn't have those things in place, and I had to learn the hard way and learn through all these experiences and things going wrong and all these pieces. It took me years to develop some of these skill sets and capabilities. And now as I'm continuing to grow, because I'm not done, as I'm continuing to grow, I can make such faster progress
Yes.
because I can put in place these elements that allow me to keep moving forward and allow me to keep progressing. So I'm curious, what do you think of those 6 elements?
Yeah, I love those 6 elements. I want to comment on that common story of I don't have the time, the energy, the resources, all of that. Because I found myself there, and I find clients there a lot. And one of the things that we rarely do as human beings is really take into consideration the energy expense, the emotional and energetic expense of what we do, and how we're doing it. And if you can really take a look at that, of what's the thing that's going on that you don't like, what's the negative result of that, and what's the negative result of that. It's a game I like to play often, to tip those scales and be like, I actually don't want to afford not doing this, because
Mm,
it gets to change. And I think you're spot on, Jessica, when you say it makes you more efficient, it opens up more energy. When you learn these tools, when you learn to really change on a root level, your ability to change will be so much easier, so much faster, and you'll evolve in ways that it will transform your whole life, not only professionally but personally. It'll transform your children. I've seen huge ripple effects in my own 4 boys, in their lives. I met with my son's teacher at parent teacher conference, and he's a recovering perfectionist, and he was struggling the other day with something that he did, and he was beating himself up. And then she's watched him, and he just took some deep breaths, and he literally started breathing. It's a proud mom moment, but then had a shift. And she's like, I rarely see this in children nowadays, but you have a very resilient child. And I'm like, thank you, thank you. And so the impact is so great and so beautiful that it makes it worth it. It's worth the investment. You're worth the investment because of the amount of people it does impact. So these key elements, taking that time to reflect, to me, that's putting your oxygen mask on before giving to other people. It's vital. Integrating, integration. I, like you, got to this place. I love books. I'm always reading, I'm always learning, growing. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. And the question I always ask myself when I'm reading books or information is what does this actually look like in my life? What does that look like to actually apply that? And that's been so helpful for me to take little steps to change that. But integration is so, to me, knowledge is not power, it's applied knowledge. Integration of knowledge is where you gain your power. So taking action, consistency, I would say the most important of all these things is accountability and coaching. Accountability and coaching will make the biggest difference of all of those things. Guaranteeing your results, that those things happen. When accountability is present and you have a coach that you meet with regularly at a consistent time, your results go through the roof. So I would say those are probably the biggest things: accountability and coaching. Really, if you want to up level, if you want to get to the next level of your performance in work and home, a, a coach and a group for accountability is going to be key to your success.
well, and I love one of the things that triggered for me was what actually triggered all this was the course I was taking, and they were talking about it in the context of why they only have little short bits of
Mm,
information and
yes.
not long articles. And the thing is, and this is interesting, is that taking in knowledge gives us a dopamine hit. It gives us a feel good feeling. And so we like taking in the knowledge, and we actually like it so much that we would trade taking in the knowledge for actually doing anything with it. And
Yes.
so because we do that, because the knowledge, we have to incorporate the action really frequently. And so in this course
Mhm.
I'm taking, that's what it does. And that is really, and this is when the lightning bolt went off for me,
Mhm.
and for what we've been working on with our new evolving future leaders program, which is all about evolving future leaders to peak performance. And that doesn't mean it's just high potential leaders. This is a program for leaders at every level to make sure they have all the practices that they need to be operating at peak performance and helping their people operate at peak performance, i- in all aspects of their life, like work and
Mhm.
home life.
Mhm.
And the lightning bolt for me was that this is what our program does. That what our program does is makes the space for, it's they're all really short videos.
Mhm.
It's a lot of it because there's a lot of really important things that you have
Yeah.
to do, but there are really short videos with actions and reflection integrated throughout, so that you stop, so that you think about what you just learned, so you integrate it, you define some action, you have those insights, and you do that as you're going throughout our program. And then it requires consistency, because in order to get the certification, and in a lot of cases our clients or our customers are getting their workplaces to pay for this program for them as a development and leadership development tool. And so part of it is that we're going to provide back to these organizations that people have really developed these skill sets. And so there are quizzes and checklists and steps and things that you have to do to truly demonstrate that you're doing the action, that you're doing the work, that you're developing the skills and capabilities, which for somebody, like, I'm going to be honest, like me, who might not follow through in a lot of like self-led training programs, when you bake that in, when I have to do it to get a certification, I'm gonna do it, right? I'm gonna
Mhm.
do it. I'm gonna
Yep.
follow through on it. And so that's part of the reason that we do that. And then we couple it with coaching and accountability. And so that's creating accountability. And then we have coaching support, both group coaching and one-on-one coaching, and then virtual asynchronous coaching in our community, where you can ask questions, talk about things, address things. We can have challenges to, so that you're really doing this, where you're really getting to a result that when you come out the end, when you come out the other side and it's completed, I mean, I can guarantee, I have 100% satisfaction guarantee on this program, because I know from having put people through it, when you do it, you become an exceptional leader and manager,
Mhm.
and you become an exceptional performer. And the results, I mean, every person that I've put through has gotten, raises and increases and promotions, and gone from individual contributor to director of sales, and made just huge progress. So I know that it works. The hard part is getting them to do it. The
Mhm.
hard
Yeah.
part is
Mhm.
following through. And so the last thing you should do is just go start taking random online courses.
Mhm.
Um, and that is why
Mhm.
we really created a program rather than just sell a bunch of courses, because we want that transformational change. And we know that to get transformational change, it takes more than just watching videos and
Mhm.
online courses. It takes more than
Mhm.
that. And so that's why we've built the program that we have. And I'm really excited for it. I think it's
Me
going to
too.
make a big difference.
Yeah.
So, on that note, as we kind of wrap up this episode, I want to highlight that our Evolving Future Leaders certification to our Evolving Future Leaders to Peak Performance program is available. We're just in our pilot launch, so we are bringing people on, but we're just at the beginning of starting it. It's going to have twice monthly calls, a live webinar training call, and a live group coaching Q&A call every month. It's going to have the opportunity to also get one-on-one coaching. You can get coaching through the community. You just get a ton of support and guidance that is going to just truly help you transform your growth and make a difference. So reach out to us if you're interested. We price this as affordably as we possibly can. We want people to get into this. So if you feel like you can't afford it for some reason or are struggling, reach out to us because we want to make this accessible, especially to small businesses that don't have anything in place. So if you are a small business owner, a leader of less than 100 people or even 100 to 200 people, we will make big discounts and packages so you can give this to your employees or at least to your managers and leaders and in a way that can really support them. So reach out to us. We're super, super excited about it.
And
We think it's
Jess, do
gonna
you want to mention SHRM credits?
Oh, yes, good point. We also are now a recertification provider for SHRM. So if you are an HR person that needs SHRM continuous learning professional development credits, all of our courses will count towards that. So all of everything in this program, and I actually have not added up how many that's going to be. It's going to be a lot. I know it's going to be a lot. But if you do this, you'll just get to get a ton of credits for doing it. I do want to mention two other events that we have going on coming up soon. So, one is the Voices of Women Summit on March 8th. I have spoken at it for the last 2 years. It's a great day of just amazing women sharing the things that they're doing and how they're making a difference in the world. And it's just a fantastic summit to attend and be a part of. We will be sending out links if you're interested in attending, and checking out that summit or seeing at least coming to see our talk on that. We'd love to have you. And then the second thing is in a couple of weeks on March 14th. We're going to be doing, and we're going to start doing this every month, where we offer a free 90-minute intro to strengths webinar. And so if you take the Gallup Clifton Strengths Finder assessment and provide us your results in advance, it's a 90-minute session. It's normally $250 a person, but we've decided to start offering it so that more people can discover their strengths and get started with their strengths. We're going to be doing that. So if you're interested, head on over to our website. We'll put links in the show notes, and would love to have you come attend. You'll get to meet us, get to interact, get to learn about your strengths. It's a great kind of first step to maybe learn a little bit more about performance and how to get to these results. So we are so excited for all of this and so appreciative for your taking the time to listen to this episode and to be a part of the Evolving to Exceptional community. And as always, reach out to us if you need absolutely anything. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And just remember to always keep evolving.